It is said that more than 1,500 years ago, during the Northern Wei dynasty in China, the barbarian troops often invaded the border and seized prefectures and counties. One day, the barbarian commander Talizi led his troops to launch a large-scale invasion of central China. He Tingyu, the imperial marshal stationed in the northwest border pass, was worried about Talizi's increasingly arrogant invasions. Suddenly, the scout came into the account and reported. It turned out that Talizi led a large group of cavalry to come to fight. Marshal he immediately ordered further scouting and ordered all generals, meet the enemy with horses. The two armies confronted each other. Marshal he shouted, Talizi, my court has never wronged you. Why do you repeatedly raise troops to invade the border? Talizi replied, just because my country has barren land and poverty, I borrowed your country's land to raise troops. I will return it in 1,000 years. Marshal he was furious, nonsense. Ready to shoot. The two sides started fighting. After a fierce battle, Marshal he gradually couldn't hold on and retreated from the battle. Talizi couldn't help but laughed loudly. Brothers! Talizi arrogantly ordered his subordinates, set up camp here, rest the troops for 3 days, do whatever you want, and be ready to march into central China after 3 days. Let's say Marshal he was defeated and returned to camp. Facing the enemy's large number of troops, he was very anxious and didn't know what to do for a while. General Zhang, his subordinate, came forward with a plan. Marshal, the enemy is coming fiercely. Why don't you report to the Holy One while recruiting local braves and training troops and horses, so that the enemy will surely be wiped out? Upon hearing this, Marshal he nodded and said, good. He immediately wrote a memorial and handed it to General Li, ordering, return to court and ask the Holy One to recruit local braves. Make no mistake. As the wolf smoke rose on the border, the family of the old man Huahu in Shaomi village, Yan'an Prefecture, were rejoicing over his recent recovery from illness. On this day, Huahu's daughter Mulan came to the weaving room to shuttle back and forth, silently praying for her father's speedy recovery and her parents' longevity. Suddenly, the village guard came to the door and asked, is Huahu at home? Mulan hurriedly opened the door and asked, what business does the village guard have with my father? Due to sudden aggression from the enemy, the border is in urgent need of reinforcements. Your father is required to enlist immediately, the guard said, handing Mulan an emergency conscription notice. Mulan was shocked and exclaimed, oh no! My father is already retired and in poor health. The guard asked, is there a son who can replace him? I have no elder brother, only a younger one who is still too young. Moreover, my father is old and ill. What should we do? Mulan replied. The border is in dire straits, and your father needs to enlist as soon as possible, the guard insisted. After the guard left, Mulan was in turmoil and couldn't focus on weaving. She thought to herself, my father is old and sick. How can he go to war? Unfortunately, even though I have learned martial arts, as a woman, it is difficult to enlist and serve my father and my country. As she pondered, she began mimicking the movements of a man. At that moment, Mulan's sister, came in quietly and asked, why are you sighing, sister? What's on your mind? Are you thinking of finding a husband? Oh sister, you have no idea, Mulan replied anxiously. Just now, the village guard delivered a conscription notice saying that the enemy has invaded our border and my father's name is still on the conscription list. How can he endure the hardships of war at his age and health? Mulan's sister was also alarmed and Mulan said, sister, I have an idea, but I will tell you after we speak to our parents. You mischievous girl. Mulan's sister laughed and scolded her. The two sisters went to see their parents, and their younger brother, Muley, was also in the room. Mulan hesitated to speak, but her sister spoke first. Father, sister just received a military notice at the door. What military notice? Huahu asked urgently. Mulan handed him the notice. Ah! Huahu was stunned after reading it, and Hua's mother asked, what does it say? Huahu said, due to the urgent border situation, the country is conscripting soldiers to defend against external enemies. As I am still on the conscription list, I am required to enlist immediately. Hua's mother became anxious upon hearing this. You are already so old, how can you fight in the battle? You must not go. What nonsense! Hua Hu exclaimed, it is the responsibility of every man to contribute to the survival of our nation. If everyone only cares about their own safety and comfort, and the country falls, how can our family survive? I must go and enlist immediately. He was already out of breath before finishing his words. At this point, Mulan spoke up, Father's words are certainly correct, but you are old and sick, and my younger brother is still too young. I would rather dress up as a man and enlist in the army on behalf of my father. Hua Hu and Hua's mother were both shocked, thinking that Mulan was talking nonsense. Mulan's sister, Mulan, also laughed and said, Sister, this is indeed a good idea. However, Mulan's younger brother, Mulan, admired his sister's courage from the bottom of his heart. At this moment, the village guard came again and delivered a second message, the military situation is urgent, and those who are eligible for enlistment must prepare their battle attire, horses, armor, and weapons, and hurry to the border day and night without delay. After the village guard left, Mulan urged, Father, time is of the essence now. Let me use my younger brother's name to enlist. However, Hua Hu still shook his head repeatedly, and Hua's mother disagreed even more. Mulan became anxious, Mother, since childhood, I have learned many military strategies and martial arts from my father. Now that the enemy is approaching, what is the use of learning them if I cannot use them? Besides, women have led troops to battle since ancient times. Mulan listed several historical examples of brave women who led armies and fought valiantly. She became excited and said, These female heroes have left a lasting legacy in history. I am willing to follow in their footsteps and enlist on behalf of my father. Hua Hu and Hua's mother said, In the midst of thousands of troops and horses, killing the enemy and winning the battle requires courage and martial arts skills. How can your meager martial arts skills compare to those of ancient people? Mulan was unconvinced and proposed to have a contest with her father. If she won, she would enlist on behalf of her father. If she lost, she would never mention enlisting again. All right. Hua Hu agreed. Mulan and her brother brought swords and gave them to Hua Hu and Mulan, respectively. Mulan took the sword in her hand and made a feint towards her father. Hua Hu called out, Wait, let me prepare first. Mulan playfully stopped and smiled at her skeptical sister. However, Hua Hu took advantage of her distraction and thrust his sword at her. Mulan quickly blocked her father's thrust with her sword and said, Dad, didn't you say you needed to prepare first? Hua Hu laughed and said, I was just testing your eyesight. Mulan, her brother, and others all laughed together. The father and daughter began to spar, and Hua Hu gradually became weaker. He jumped out of the circle, admitting defeat and gasping for breath. Mulan remained calm. Mulan hurried to support her father. Hua Hu sighed and said, I am getting old. Your martial arts skills are not bad. Mulan eagerly said, So will you allow me to enlist on your behalf now? Mulan's sister said, But you're a girl, working with men all day long. That's not appropriate. Hua's wife also chimed in, As your mother, I can't bear to let you go. Let's not go. Mulan became anxious and said, Mother, are you willing to let our aging and sickly father go instead? Hua's wife didn't know what to do, but Hua insisted on going to enlist himself. Seeing this situation, Mulan sighed and said, Parents, I have said all that needs to be said, and we have compared our martial arts. You still won't let me go. It's a shame that I cannot be loyal to my country or filial to my father. I might as well. Mulan drew her sword and made a show of pretending to commit suicide. This frightened Hua, his wife, and Mulan's siblings, who all rushed forward to stop her. Hua Hu nodded and said to his wife, I think with our daughter's courage and martial arts skills, there should be no problem if she goes. Hua Hu turned to Mulan and said, My child, since you have such loyalty and filial piety in your heart, your mother and I won't stop you. My armor is still here. Quickly put it on and let me have a look. Mulan was overjoyed and said, Yes, father. She asked her mother and sister to help her change into the armor while Hua Hu went to buy a horse and saddle for her. Mulan appeared before her father in her armor. Hua praised her, "You have the spirit of a man. When you meet the general, will you know how to pay your respects?" "I will," Mulan replied. With the general above, Mulan pays her respects. She bowed without kneeling, revealing her feminine side. "Oh, you're doing it wrong. Let me show you," Hua said, demonstrating how to properly bow and kneel. "First fix your hat and dust off your clothes, then kneel down and say, 'With the general above, the junior officer Hua.'" Mulan pays her respects. "Oh, I see," Mulan said, imitating her father's actions. The father and daughter's actions amused everyone and made them laugh. Hua nodded and said, "Good. My child, your horse is waiting outside. It's getting late, so start your journey." "Yes, father." Mulan saluted. The family accompanied Mulan to the village and was reluctant to part with her. Mulan comforted her parents, telling them not to worry, and promising to return home after defeating the enemy and taking care of them. Mulan also gave instructions to her sister and brother before setting out. How will the story develop after Mulan joins the army? The story behind is more exciting. Please subscribe to our channel and we will update you the next episode right away.